In the last video, we selected a number of road types from our map of Kentucky and symbolized them by line width, line style, and added some descriptive labels as well. I'm going to turn that off. Today we're going to look at some of the data that's within the county polygon. We have our polygons, and we have the name, caps in lowercase, county seat, the FIPS number, and so on, but there's some population data here too. It's population in 1970, 80, 90, and 2010, the change in the 10-year blocks, the density, population per square mile, and some area data for the counties as well. So what we're going to do is do some selections of data, some symbolization of the population data. Let me turn that off, which is what I meant to do. So we either right-click and choose properties or double-click. And we want to symbolize, I'm here on the Symbology tab, we want to symbolize quantities. So this is not the default, this is what I happen to have up here. This I find it a little bit hard. You got many choices, and I find it hard to select what I actually want, so I usually right click here and turn off the graphic view. This is yellow to dark red. That's a pretty good color ramp. So the value we want to classify on, let's go to our 2010 census. That would be pop 10 there, and normalization is a per something. It's dividing by that. We won't do that at this point. Let's do some simple formatting of our labels. Since we're talking about people, those are integer numbers. We don't need 6 decimal places. We'll turn the decimal places to 0. So the classification by default is what's called the Jinx method. This method looks for natural breaks in the data and puts the breaks there just by default. Let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So it's not too informative. You do get the idea that Kentucky counties by and large are fairly low population, less than 30,000 people or so. Here at Louisville, Lexington, and up near Cincinnati, the Covington area, are somewhat higher population. Our county, where our college is, Madison, is moderate population. But there are other ways to symbolize or to classify this. So let's go back and look at some of the possibilities. Okay, we can classify. We can have fewer or more classes. You generally don't want more than, say, 6 or 7. And you want to stick with a color ramp that's sort of a ramp of hue, saturation, and value, not your primary colors, red and green. Those are a little hard on the eyes. But some of the other possibilities, we can pick them manually if we have a particular population or other variable range that we're interested in. We can pick equal interval, and that will probably not tell us very much. Tells us very little except for a few higher population counties. We can have a defined interval, a quantile. that will make an equal number of people in each of our 5 categories. And we'll just stick with 5 for the moment. That tends to make us think that we have some rather high population counties in Kentucky. Again, the way you classify this in part is how it will be interpreted. So you really want to think about how you do your classification. Quite often the Jenks method will be the best, but definitely not always. Let's try 1 or 2 more. We'll classify again. And the geometric interval, that multiplies by a factor. And let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that tends to accentuate the high population counties. And 1 more, let's try. I have never actually used this, but let's take a look at it and see what we get. This will be plus and minus the mean values, and we'll see what that looks like. So we've got some that are less than half a standard deviation from the mean, 1/2 to 1.5 standard deviations, and 1.5 to 2.5, and greater than 2.5. So the county with Lexington and Louisville are more than 2.5 standard deviations higher than the average county population. So let's, well, we can leave that for the moment. Let me show you one other thing that is possible to do. Let's open up the county polygon again. And let's just go back to plain features. We'll make it hollow. And then let's do a definition query. Some areas of Kentucky are growing, the city areas, and some of them are not. So let's just look at let's just look at that where am I? Where the population in 2010 is less than the population in 1970. And that shows mostly the eastern and western. Let's give those some sort of color so we can pick them out. Oh, let's make them rose colored, doesn't matter. And those are eastern part of Kentucky, the coal fields, and western down by the Mississippi River tend to be losing population. So let's copy this and now we always have trouble with this. I'll go up to edit and say paste, and that works. Let's open that. Let's make that hollow, and let's erase our definition query. So we get a look at declining population. Let's look at one more thing. See, this is the let's just turn that off. Let's re-symbolize it and try one more sort of thing, and that'll do it for today. Let's go back to symbology. Let's do quantities, and we'll do population in 2010. Now let's normalize it. There's actually a variable, a field in the attribute table that gives you your population density, but if that doesn't exist, you can normalize it. So what we're going to do, what that means is we're going to divide by. Let's divide by the square miles, so we're going to get population per square mile, and let's try that. That gives us a similar interpretation as we had before. Now, so that's about all you get from this attribute table. We can combine any other county-based attribute tables, Excel files, and so on, and do table joins and things like that we'll go into in a future video. But for now, that will be enough, I think.